All right, all right. Shayna, tell me about give me an overview of the medical marijuana research that you're doing there.
Sure. So the Cannabis Center has several projects that we are planning to launch within the coming months. We have been in the planning stages and approval stages, and we are really excited about one study or several studies, but one study in particular with cancer patients at the UK Markey Cancer Center. So the Cannabis Center is collaborating with Markey to look at edible cannabis doses and placebo to determine if medical marijuana or medical cannabis can be beneficial for patients with cancer. We are looking at outcomes like quality of life, mood, and appetite. We are looking at weight. And so we're trying to figure out, will medical marijuana or medical cannabis help the patients keep their weight up like they need to and keep their appetite up? We're looking at sleep quality and a variety of outcome measures. So this will be one of the first controlled dosing studies with cancer patients. And our ultimate goal with this study is to start to figure out dosing for cancer patients. So that's something that's not known. So if a patient presents to their physician and asks, how much medical marijuana should I take? What's safe for me? What do you think I'll be able to tolerate? The answers there aren't super clear for that physician to make recommendations. They can do their best, but there's nothing out there to help them really guide that discussion.
Which
And
is
so
which your research is with the ultimate goal of guiding that discussion.
it, that's our goal. That's our goal, is to start to guide dosing with the results of this study. So we're testing various doses and we're testing various titration models. So how fast can you move somebody up with doses until they're comfortable? And so we feel like this is a really good first step in determining dosing for cancer. Now, other conditions are going to be different, right? So dosing for cancer or a specific outcome for cancer, particular symptom might be different for everyone, and it might be different for different conditions. But this is the first step, right? To try to chip away at that question.
It's a Friday morning. How long have you been doing this research? When did it start?
I have been doing
Well,
controlled
well, no,
cancer.
no, no. This cancer research.
It is not launched yet. We have been planning it and getting our approvals in place. And so we're hoping to start roughly July 1.
Okay. So, is medical marijuana addictive?
It can be. It can be. So cannabis can be problematic for some people. It can be therapeutic for some people, just like any other drug.
So, if somebody says medical marijuana gives me relief from whatever ails them, that's true. That it does do that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And so we're trying to find through our studies that we're conducting of and other people across the world are trying to figure out, what does medical cannabis do for different populations? So does it help with pain? Does it help with anxiety? Does it help with cancer? Does it help with obesity? We have lots and lots of questions. We have a lifetime of work to do. But we're trying, the researchers at UK and others are trying to determine efficacy first, right? Does this drug work for something? And then what are the risks and side effects of that dosing model? So are people misusing it? Are people reporting unwanted side effects? Are they getting sick from it? And so that's all part of the constellation that we're looking at of risk and benefit for medical cannabis.
So, is there a danger if somebody is taking medical marijuana for what ails them, for them to become addicted to this?
It's possible, sure. That's possible. So It's like any other drug that you would take that affects the central nervous system and releases dopamine. So we don't think that it's on par with opioids. So we think that medical cannabis or cannabis in general introduces less risk than, say, something like opioids or cocaine or methamphetamine. However, there's still a risk that's there, of course, with any drug that is misused.
So, so the issue is using it properly and not and not misusing it, becoming addicted to it.
That's right. That's right. And if someone reports to us that they are taking too much of it or they are using it in a way that's not therapeutic, then that's kind of a signal that there's some problematic use there.
Okay. Um, so I had a list of questions here. What cancer? You know the medical side. What other uses have you found for medical marijuana?
So all of our studies are still underway. We don't have any data yet, but I can tell you some of the studies that we have about to launch. So we have our cancer trial. We also have a study where we're looking at opioid use disorder. So we are looking at enrolling patients who have problematic opioid use and get sick when they stop. And we are looking at cannabis for opioid withdrawal. Does cannabis dose potentially help somebody's withdrawal outcome? Does it make it worse? Does it make it better, or does it not change anything? We're also interested in opioid and cannabinoid combinations, and we'll have some data coming out very soon to see what happens when you put higher doses of opioids and higher doses of cannabis together. Is that safe? What does it do to the abuse potential of those drugs? So how much do people like taking those high doses together? And what does it do to their breathing outcomes? Does that make opioids more safe or less safe, or does it leave it alone? And so we have a whole program of research surrounding opioid and cannabinoids. We are also about to start enrolling for an obesity trial. So cannabis looks like, and cannabinoids look like they're very helpful in modulating metabolic disease, but controlled studies have not been conducted yet. But in animal models and cellular models, it looks like cannabis has some effects on BMI, a healthy effect on BMI, and a healthy effect on metabolic disease and liver dysfunction related to metabolic disease and insulin resistance. And so we are excited to do a study that starts to look at that as well.
Man, I'm fascinated. Hearing this because I mean medical marijuana. I'm fascinated with personally. With the with the issue here. I mean, it just sounds like you're just scratching the surface. There's a
Oh
whole
my goodness.
yeah.
There's 10 lifetimes of work to be done, and then we're still not done, right? This type of work that we're doing, I don't want to say it's nearly impossible, but it almost is nearly impossible to do with all the regulations that are needed to be able to do it with a Schedule I drug. So keep in mind that even though marijuana has been legalized in several states, the medical use has been legalized in several states, researchers like me are still held to Schedule I drug laws. So we
What does that
can't,
mean?
I'll tell you what that means. So that means that we have to handle marijuana similar to what we would handle high dose opioids, cocaine, MDMA, LSD. We have to have the highest level of security in our laboratory. We have to have the highest level of drug documentation. We have to have full permissions from the DEA every time we do a study. And we also have to have full permissions from the FDA. So I need a Schedule I drug license to be able to do this work. And what that means is that I'm allowed to administer cannabis to people when that is fully illegal for any physician to do. Physicians can't write a prescription for marijuana, they can only recommend. Actually, prescribing it is against the law, just like it's illegal to prescribe ecstasy or LSD, right? And so the federal government has allowed me a Schedule 1 drug license so I can hold and dispense this. But the amount of regulation that oversees this work is so onerous and so difficult that many people quit. And so it's just, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. And so the benefit that we have here at UK is that we're used to that process. We don't like it, but we're used to it.
Sure, sure.
And we're a little bit used to navigating some of those regulatory barriers. So that's why a lot of this work has never been done. So when people ask, is medical marijuana good for this condition or this condition? Frequently we will say, well, we don't know. There's never been a controlled study compared to placebo to really look at that. We can only hear patient self-reports. And we don't really have those placebo-controlled studies or dosing studies to know what doses are good, because this work is so difficult and it's so hard to actually figure some of this stuff out. So we feel really fortunate that the state has supported us in these efforts and that we're able to start getting this work done.
Yeah, because I think the General Assembly funded a study.
They gave us $2 million to conduct as many studies as we could. And so we are trying our best. So I gave you a kind of an indication of some of the studies that we were doing. And then we're also planning to release some driving data that we've collected in addition. And we are also doing lots of other projects in the background to look at the public health implications of cannabis use. We are conducting survey work with cancer patients. We are we're hoping to apply for a growing license with the College of Agriculture to start growing cannabis. And so aside from all of the controlled studies that we have ongoing, we're also doing a ton of work in the background, trying to kind of fill out other important questions.
So the General Assembly and the governor cited into law legalizing medical marijuana. So that does, so a doctor can't in Kentucky, well, effective in 2025. I know they're still developing the rules, but a regular medical doctor here in this state can't prescribe it.
No, and so that it's a little bit of a semantic game, to be honest. So when a physician prescribes a medication, they are using their DEA license to tell you what dose to take. You're filling it in a pharmacy, you know the quality of the drug that you're getting, and there's instructions around that dosing. So take 1 pill 3 times a day at this dose. For medical cannabis, a physician is only allowed to recommend you to a program and say, I can certify that you have this condition and I'm allowing you to access medical cannabis because you have this condition. Once that patient is in a dispensary, that patient determines how much they take, what frequency they take, and what product they select. So a physician is just kind of opening the gate for a patient to kind of go to a dispensary and figure that out. Now, a physician can make recommendations on what they think that patient might benefit from, but it's not a formal prescription, and a patient doesn't have to adhere to that recommendation.
So, for example, assuming that Kentucky and Ohio had like reciprocal agreements, I know I've done a story on this. There's a medical marijuana dispensary in Jackson, Ohio. So, doctor here recommends that they take that recommendation to Jackson, and so they go through and they, here's what do you want? Is that pretty much it?
It is. It is. And so, what we talk about a lot is the interface with what we call bud tenders. That's kind of the funny term for the dispensary workers. So instead of a bartender, it's a marijuana bud tender.
I've never heard
Um,
that before.
that's the industry language, not mine. But we talk a lot about that, and oftentimes the unfortunate situation arises that a patient goes into that dispensary, and then that bud tender is really guiding what product they select and what they're using. And that's really unfortunate because they're not trained. They're not trained individuals. It's an entry level job.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit unfortunate that that's where the information comes. And we're trying to change that, obviously. We're trying to do the research to try to inform ourselves and inform physicians. And there's also other people across the country who are trying to um, do a stopgap measure and try to inform those bud tenders and try to give them better information so that they can relay better information. That's a long way away, but the state of affairs now is you're correct. It's you can go into a dispensary by the state limit, whatever that is, and you can access whatever product that you choose to. And then once you get it home, obviously you can take whatever dose you choose to. You can choose to listen to your physician recommendations, or you can't.
So, switching gears a little bit, I know here in West Virginia and I know in Kentucky, we're in the Bible Belt, so to speak. How does does that factor into the research that you're doing? Because I mean, a lot of conservatives you'll be like, oh, hey, it's drugs, does that factor in?
And I decline to comment on that.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Um, I just I thought of that. Um, so how long has you're the center for how long has your center been up and running?
1 year.
1 year. Okay, that's how long you've been that you've been researching on. Uh, uh, Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So the state money came through in July of last year. And so in July of this year, it'll be 1 year that we've had the funding.
Okay. And so you got the funding now. You're trying to figure out ways. Hey, you try to figure out what kind of experiments can we do, research can we do to collect data to
That's right.
kind of open
That's
the
right.
open the doors.
That's right. And we have our research agenda set, and we're in various stages of launching those studies across the board. So it takes a really long time to do clinical trials. And so even though I'm saying that we have been in the planning stages for about a year now, or we will be in July 1, frequently it takes years to plan clinical trials and years to conduct them. And so we are really trying our best to collect good data as fast as we can.
It and correct me if I'm wrong too. $2 million doesn't really seem like a whole heck of a lot of money. I mean, are you guys going to be able to do a lot of research with that, or will you need more down the road?
We are stretching every dollar that we have as far as it will possibly go. And so we are treating it, we are really trying our best to make every dollar stretch. And so, to put it in perspective, though, one of our clinical trials is typically $2 million. So we are trying to stretch those dollars and make those dollars count for more by doing many studies, and doing low cost studies to collect data outside of our clinical trial work.
Uh, Dr. Ian, this has just been a fascinating conversation. I mean, it really truly has. Like I said, I've been fascinated as a reporter and personally, by the issue. Because growing up, I've heard both sides of it. Um, is there anything else that? Oh, I thought. Okay, here's one question that I don't think I couple of other last questions here. Are there any dangers to medical marijuana?
Sure. So any drug has side effects, and any drug that you take can produce unwanted side effects, right? So coffee can have side effects in some people, right? And cannabis, marijuana is no different. Tylenol has side effects. Of course, there's unwanted side effects and there's dangers of medical cannabis. So one of the most common side effects that we'll see is after an acute dose. So that means after one dose is given, frequently what we see is a heart rate increase of about 20 beats per minute, but that depends on the dose. That's generally short lasting. But sometimes if people are taking a dose that they're not quite used to, that can be a more profound effect. And then the body can interpret that increased heart rate as a kind of fight or flight, anxiety provoking instance, because usually your heart isn't racing when there's nothing wrong, right?
Right.
And so sometimes people's body will just interpret that as panic or anxiety or that something bad is happening. And so that doesn't happen with everyone. It doesn't happen with every dose. But we see that sometimes in the laboratory when we give controlled doses, that heart rate will increase, the blood pressure will also increase, but again, it's dose dependent. So if you're taking a small dose, that's less likely to happen. Then it happens more frequently at high doses. Other things that we see are what's called orthostatic hypotension. So cannabis can kind of dysregulate blood pressure after a dose. And so if someone stands up very fast, their blood pressure is a little bit dysregulated. And every once in a while, someone will have like tunnel vision where it kind of goes black in their periphery and they can start to see stars. And so what we have them do is just sit back down and get themselves settled, drink some water, relax. But those are just known side effects of cannabinoids. Cannabinoids have activity in the heart, in the cardiac muscle. There also they have vascular activity, and so those things aren't unexpected. I don't think the general public talks about that a lot.
What are carbinoids?
Cannabinoids, those are the chemicals in marijuana, so that give it its effects. So like delta 9 THC is the main cannabinoid that we talk about. So that's the chemical that makes you feel high or gives you the euphoric effect that people talk about. But there's lots of others, like CBD is in the marijuana plant. We don't think that has any effects, like euphorogenic effects that would make you feel high. But it may have some therapeutic effects as well. And so that's what we're trying to figure out. But cannabinoids are the chemicals in the plant that become available to your body when you take medical marijuana.
Now, last
I
question.
apologize. I do have a meeting at 10:30 that I need to hit around the hall. So this might be my last question.
Well, does it really, I guess it provides a temporary relief, but then any sort of pain medicine will provide a temporary relief. Is there an aspect of it that will provide more relief or more permanent?
We don't know the answer to that yet. That's a really good question. And so we actually don't know with a controlled trial if cannabis can actually help pain yet. So some patients report that. Some patients report that it doesn't help pain. It helps their mood and helps them mentally deal with their pain, but the pain hasn't changed. And then other people say that it has made their pain worse. So we're really relying on all patient reports at this point, and there's not a lot of controlled data that we have available that says it's a great analgesic. It could be, we just don't have that data. So we don't know if people take it long term, will their pain come back? Will they need more medical marijuana to control their pain? All those questions are still out there, and we're trying to help discover those.
I know you got to get to your meeting, but boy, this has been fascinating. I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
And
let me know if you have any follow-ups.
I will. Thank you so much. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.